Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of English Broadcast Studio. Today we're diving into something really useful for travelers, essential English vocabulary that will help you navigate airports with ease. Whether you're flying internationally or domestically, knowing the right words can make your trip a lot smoother.
That's right, Alex. Travel can be exciting, but also a bit overwhelming, especially when you're in a foreign country and don't speak the local language. But don't worry, today we'll go over some basic vocabulary that will help you through every step of your journey, from the moment you enter the airport to the moment you board your plane.
Exactly, Emma. Let's start with one of the most crucial places, the airport. Now, when you first arrive at an airport, you'll usually be greeted by signs. Let's break down some of the key vocabulary you'll need to understand.
First up, check-in counter. This is where you'll go to register for your flight, get your boarding pass, and check your luggage. Sometimes it's automated with self-check-in kiosk, but you might still need to speak with an agent, especially if you have questions or issues with your ticket.
Right, and don't forget about security. Once you check in, you'll need to go through security control. Here, you'll be asked to take off your shoes, belts, and jackets and place your carry-on items into bins for screening.
It's important to remember the phrase, "I need to go through security." If you're lost or confused, don't hesitate to ask, "Where is the security checkpoint?" Most airports will have clear signs, but it's always good to double-check.
And speaking of carry-ons, you might be asked at the check-in counter, "Is this your carry-on luggage?" This is the bag you can bring onto the plane with you, and it must follow the airline's size and weight restrictions.
Exactly. Once you're through security, you'll need to head to the boarding gate. That's the area where you'll wait before you board your flight. There'll be usually a sign showing your gate number, and announcements will be made about the boarding process.
And don't forget about the boarding pass. You'll need this to get on the plane. It's a piece of paper or a digital document that has your flight details and boarding information.
If you're unsure about your gate or anything else, feel free to ask, "Can you help me find my gate?" Or "Where is gate number X?" The staff are there to assist you.
Great. Now that we've covered the basics of the airport, let's talk about the inside of the airport and what you'll need to know once you're through check-in and security. For example, after passing security, you might need to head to the duty-free shop or grab a snack at one of the cafes.
That's right. And while you're exploring the airport, you might come across signs for restrooms, or you may hear announcements for boarding groups. Make sure to listen closely, especially if you're in a large airport, because things can get confusing with all the different gates and announcements happening at once.
Speaking of gates, you'll often hear phrases like, "Flight 202 to London is now boarding at gate 10. And if you need to know more, you can always ask the staff, "When will Flight 202 board?" Or "Where can I find the departure gate?"
Right. It's a good idea to check the flight information display boards. These large screens will show the departure times and gate numbers, along with the status of your flight. If your flight is delayed, it will also be updated there.
Now, once your boarding group is called, you'll head to the gate agent. The gate agent will check your boarding pass and ID before you can board the plane. Don't forget to say, "Hello, I'm boarding now."
At this point, you might be asked, "Do you have any checked luggage?" Or "Is this your carry-on?" Be sure you understand the difference. Checked luggage goes in the cargo hold, while your carry-on stays with you.
Once you're on the plane, you'll likely hear the flight attendant saying things like, "Please fasten your seatbelt," or "Make sure your seat is in the upright position for takeoff." These are important instructions, so listen closely.
And if you're not sure how to fasten your seatbelt or need help with something, just politely ask, "Can you please help me with my seatbelt?" Or "Could you show me how to adjust my seat?"
Good point, Speaker 2. And don't forget, during the flight attendants will often offer drinks and snacks. You might hear, "Would you like a beverage or a snack?" And if you're unsure about the options, you can always ask, "What do you have for snacks or drinks?"
Definitely. And if you're feeling uncomfortable during the flight, such as feeling cold or hot, it's perfectly fine to ask for help. "Could I have a blanket, please?" Or "Can I adjust the temperature in my seat?"
All right, speaker two. Now that we've covered everything from check-in to boarding, let's talk about what happens once you land at your destination. This part can be just as important when it comes to communication, so let's go over the arrival process.
Exactly. After the plane lands, you'll hear announcements saying things like, "Welcome to Paris. Please remain seated until the seatbelt sign is turned off." Once that happens, you'll be allowed to exit the plane and head to immigration control.
Ah, yes. Immigration or passport control is where you'll show your passport and visa, if required, to the immigration officer. They may ask you questions like, what is the purpose of your visit? Or how long will you be staying?
If you're unsure about something, it's okay to politely ask, "Where do I go after immigration?" Or, "Is there a specific area for travelers to collect luggage?"
After immigration, you'll head to the baggage claim area to collect your checked luggage. Look for signs that say baggage claim or arrivals and find the carousel number listed on your baggage claim ticket.
If you don't see your bag right away, don't panic. You can always ask the baggage service desk, "My luggage hasn't arrived. Can you help me?"
They will assist you in locating your bag or help you file a claim if it's lost.
After you have your luggage, you'll head to the customs area where you might be asked about any items you're bringing into the country. A common question might be, "Do you have anything to declare?"
Exactly. If you don't have anything to declare, just answer, "No, I have nothing to declare." If you're unsure whether something needs to be declared, it's best to ask, "Is this item allowed in the country?" Now you've made it through the airport, but the journey doesn't end there. Once you're out of the airport, you'll probably need to get to your hotel or next destination. That's where transportation comes in.
You have several options for getting around. Let's start with taxis. When you exit the airport, there will usually be a taxi stand where you can line up for a ride. You can simply say, "I need a taxi to blah." If you're unsure where the taxi stands are, ask, "Where can I find a taxi?"
You can also use ride-sharing apps like Uber or Lyft in many cities. If you're using an app, you might say, "I've booked an Uber to blah." If you're unfamiliar with the city, don't hesitate to ask, "Where can I meet my ride?"
For a more budget-friendly option, you might want to take public transportation, such as the bus or train. You can ask, "Where is the bus station?" or "How do I get to the train station?"
If you're taking the train, you'll likely hear announcements like, "The next train to blah departs from platform 3." Be sure to check the train schedule and confirm your platform before you board. You might also need to buy a ticket or a travel pass. If you need help, simply ask, "Where can I buy a ticket?" Or, "Do I need to stamp my ticket before getting on?" Now that you've made it to your destination and figured out transportation, let's dive into some useful vocabulary for exploring the city, interacting with locals, and finding your way around. This part will focus on local culture, sightseeing, and hotel-related vocabulary.
Sounds great. First, let's talk about the hotel. After a long journey, your hotel is where you'll probably want to head. When you arrive, you'll need to go to the reception or front desk. Here's an important phrase. "I have a reservation under the name," your name.
If you don't have a reservation, you can still ask, "Do you have any rooms available?" or "Can I check in?" The hotel staff will guide you through the check-in process, which usually includes giving your passport, confirming your reservation, and sometimes paying in advance.
Once you're checked in, they'll often hand you a room key or key card. It's common to ask, "Where's my room?" if you're unsure about where to go. Most hotels will provide a map of the premises showing where the elevators, restaurants, and other amenities are located.
If you need anything during your stay, you can call the front desk and ask for services like, "Can I get extra towels?" Or "Is there a laundry service available?" Some hotels also offer wake-up calls, so you can request, "Could I have a wake-up call at 7 a.m., please?"
Great tips. Now, let's move on to sightseeing. When you're visiting a new city, you'll probably want to explore its famous landmarks and tourist attractions. Common phrases when visiting places of interest include, "How do I get to the museum, park, or statue?" Or, "What time does the landmark open or close?"
When you're at a museum or art gallery, you might need to buy a ticket at the entrance. You can ask, "How much is the entrance fee?" Or, "Are there any discounts for students or seniors?" It's always a good idea to check for guided tours too, so you can ask, "Is there a tour available in English?"
And once you're at a tourist spot, you'll probably hear the guide saying things like, "Please stay with the group," or "Don't touch the exhibits." If you're unsure about the rules or schedule, ask, are there any rules I need to follow here? Or when is the next guided tour?
For some popular attractions, especially in large cities, you might need to book tickets in advance. In that case, you can ask, can I buy tickets online? Or is it necessary to reserve a ticket before visiting?
If you're not into museums and more into outdoor activities, you might want to visit parks or nature reserves. You can ask, where can I rent a bike, or are there any hiking trails nearby?
That's a good point, Speaker 2. And if you want to explore local markets or shopping districts, you can ask, where is the nearest shopping mall? Or are there any local markets around here? Don't forget to bargain at markets if it's part of the culture. You can ask, can you give me a discount? Or what's the best price for this item? Now that you've explored the sites and checked into your hotel, it's time to talk about one of the best parts of traveling: food. Whether you're dining at a local cafe or a fancy restaurant, knowing the right vocabulary can help you have a pleasant experience.
Absolutely. Let's start with the basics. When you walk into a restaurant, the host will often ask, how many people in your party, or do you have a reservation? If you don't have one, you can say, no, we don't have a reservation. How long is the wait?
And when you're seated, the server will likely ask, would you like to start with a drink? Or can I get you something to drink? If you know what you want, you can simply say, I'll have a glass of water, wine, or beer. If you're unsure about the menu or need help understanding the options, don't hesitate to ask, can you recommend something? Or what's the specialty of the house? Most servers will be happy to suggest the best dishes or what's popular.
If you're a vegetarian or have dietary restrictions, it's important to communicate that clearly. You can say, I'm a vegetarian. Are there any vegetarian options? Or does this dish contain gluten, nuts, or dairy? The staff will help you find something suitable for your diet.
When the waiter brings the menu, you might notice a section for appetizers, entrees, and desserts. Common words you'll see on the menu include starter, main course, and dessert. You might also hear, would you like to order an appetizer? Or what's your choice for the main course?
Once you're ready to order, you can say, I'll have the dish, please. If you're ordering a drink, you might say, I'll have a type of drink. If you're undecided, you can ask, what do you recommend for a main course?
And during the meal, if you need something, you can ask a waiter, could I have some more bread, water, napkins, please? Or can I get the bill, please? If you're ready to pay, simply say, can I pay by credit card? Or do you accept cash?
And don't forget to ask about tipping culture in the country you're visiting. In some countries, a tip is included in the bill, while in others, it's customary to leave a tip of around 10 to 15%. If you're unsure, you can ask, is a tip included in the bill, or what is the usual tip here?
And now, if you happen to be at a street food stall or a local market, the situation might be a bit more casual. You can still use phrases like, how much is this? Or what's in this dish? If you're looking for something specific, you can ask, do you have any vegetarian options? Or is this spicy?
Exactly. And when you're enjoying local delicacies, don't be shy about asking about ingredients. You can say, what is this made from? Or what are the key ingredients in this dish? It's a fun way to learn more about the local cuisine.
All right, Emma. We've covered most of the basics when it comes to travel vocabulary, from airports and sightseeing to dining. But now let's focus on some important phrases for emergency situations, shopping, and some essential travel tips to make your trip even smoother.
It's always a good idea to be prepared for unexpected situations. Let's start with emergency vocabulary. If you find yourself in a difficult situation, it's important to know how to ask for help. For example, if you lose your passport or wallet, you can go to the nearest police station and say, I need to report a lost passport.
Another common emergency is needing medical assistance. If you or someone with you gets injured, you can ask for help by saying, where is the nearest hospital? Or, I need to see a doctor. You could also say, I need an ambulance.
And if you don't feel well, but it's not an emergency, you might say, I'm feeling sick. Can you recommend a pharmacy? Or you could ask, do you have any over-the-counter medicine for a cold or headache?
If you need to contact the embassy or consulate for help with lost documents or any other issues, you can ask, where is the your country's embassy? Or how do I contact the consulate?
And if you're in a situation where you need legal help, you can ask, can you recommend a lawyer? Or do you know where I can find legal assistance?
Now let's move on to shopping vocabulary. Shopping is an important part of many trips, whether you're looking for souvenirs or gifts. The first thing you'll probably hear when you enter a store is, "Can I help you?" You can answer, "Just browsing, thank you," if you don't need help right away.
But if you're looking for something specific, you can ask, where can I find clothes, shoes, souvenirs? Or, do you have this item in a different size or color? If you're shopping for food or specialty items, you might ask, is this locally made? Or, what's the price of this item?
When you find something you like, it's good to ask, "How much is this?" And if it's too expensive, you can try asking, "Do you have any discounts?" Or, "Can you give me a better price?"
Also, when you're checking out, you might hear, would you like to pay by card or cash? And do you need a receipt? You can also say, can I pay with a credit card? If you're using one.
Before we wrap up, let's go over some general travel tips to make your trip easier. First, when in doubt, don't hesitate to ask for help, whether it's asking for directions, recommendations, or help with your luggage. Phrases like, "Could you please help me?" or "Where is the nearest bus station?" can make a big difference.
That's so true. It's also a good idea to keep a list of useful emergency phrases in your phone so you can easily access them if needed. Some important ones might be, where is the nearest hospital? Or, I need a taxi to the airport.
Another helpful tip is to learn a few basic local phrases in the language of the country you're visiting. Even a simple hello or thank you can go a long way in showing respect for the local culture. For example, how do you say thank you in language?
And if you're going to be using public transportation a lot, make sure you know how to ask, where can I buy a ticket? Or, how much is a ticket to destination?
And one final tip, when you arrive at a new city or country, take a moment to look around and get your bearings. Learn how to say, "Where is the tourist information desk?" or "Is there a map of the city?"
Yes, and always make sure you have a backup plan, whether it's knowing how to get to the airport, having emergency contact numbers, or knowing where the nearest pharmacy is. Travel is fun, but being prepared can save you a lot of stress.
And that's it. We've covered essential English vocabulary for travelers, from navigating airports, ordering food and sightseeing, to dealing with emergencies and shopping. We hope this episode has been helpful to you and that you feel more confident on your next trip.
We hope you learned a lot of useful phrases today. Traveling is a fantastic experience, and knowing the right vocabulary can make your journey smoother and more enjoyable. Be sure to check out more episodes of English Broadcast Studio for more helpful tips and vocabulary.
Thank you for joining us today. Safe travels, and we'll see you next time.